From every rampart waved the banner of House Tully, a leaping trout, silver, against a rippling blue and red field. The thoughts of Catelyn Stark. A Game of Thrones, Chapter 71, Catelyn 11. House Tully of Riverrun is one of the great houses of the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros, at the start of the main A Song of Ice and Fire book series. Thus, Lord Hoster Tully is the Lord Paramount of the Trident and ruler over the Riverlands, from the Tully seat of Riverrun. Their sigil is a silver trout leaping on a striped field of blue and mud red, and the house words are family, duty, honour. House Tully, while counted as one of the great houses of Westeros, have seen their rise to power in the Riverlands be relatively recent when compared to the thousands of years of Westerosi history as a whole. Members of House Tully are typically fair-skinned and blue-eyed, with some noted for especially deep blue eyes. Their hair often appears in shades of auburn, red, brown, across multiple generations. They follow the faith of the Seven like most of the houses of the Riverlands, worshipping with a sept located inside of Riverrun, while the castle's godswood serves more as a quiet place of reflection than for religious observance. Their funeral rites stand out among the houses of Westeros, being very distinct. The deceased is laid upon a small boat, often dressed in armour, with a wooden sword and shield at their side. Their body rests on a cloak, surrounded by stones to weigh the vessel down, along with driftwood, kindling, and scraps of parchment to ensure it will burn. In keeping with their faith, 7 men are chosen to guide the boat into the waters. Once set adrift upon the Red Fork, the vessel is set ablaze with flaming arrows, sending the departed off in fire and river both. The southern rain was soft and warm. Catelyn liked the feel of it on her face, gentle as a mother's kisses. It took her back to her childhood, to long grey days at Riverrun. She remembered the godswood, drooping branches heavy with moisture, and the sound of her brother's laughter as he chased her through the piles of damp leaves. She remembered making mud pies with Lysa, the weight of them, the mud slick and brown beneath her fingers. They had served them to Littlefinger, giggling, and he'd eaten so much mud he was sick for a week. How young they'd all been. The thoughts of Catelyn Stark. A Game of Thrones, Chapter 28, Catelyn 5. Riverrun is the ancestral seat of House Tully. It stands in the western Riverlands at the meeting of the Tumblestone and Red Fork, north of Pink Maiden and northwest of Acorn Hall. Set along the river road that runs between Lannisport and the Crossroad, the castle commands a strategic and far-reaching view of the surrounding lands. Though not vast, being but a tenth of the size of Harrenhal, it is a formidable three-sided stronghold. Riverrun is naturally defended on 2 sides by rivers, with the third protected by a great man-made ditch. In times of attack, a sluice gate may be opened to flood this ditch, transforming the castle into an island encircled by water, rendering it all but impassable. The red sandstone walls rise sheer from the river, crowned with crenulated battlements and arrow slits, whilst its towers overlook the opposite banks. The gates are fashioned of heavy redwood, and its guards are known for their fish-crested helms. Properly provisioned, the castle is believed to sustain its men and horses for up to 2 years, though a garrison of 200 men is more than sufficient in most times. Within the walls stand a huge triangular keep, mirrored in the shape of the castle itself. The Lord Solar, also triangular, opens into a stone balcony facing east and is reached by a winding staircase. The Great Hall houses the high seat of the Tullys, where councils are held and feasts are conducted, with a more private audience chamber above it, complete with its own set of bells to summon servants. Among Riverrun's notable features is the wheel tower, where a great water wheel is turned by the Tumblestone River. Beneath it lies the Watergate, a wide arch half submerged and barred by an iron portcullis, through which boats may pass. Many such vessels are moored within, fastened to iron rings along the walls. A water stair climbs from the lower bailey up into the castle proper, completing a design that binds river and fortress into one. House Tully, while being an ancient noble house of firstmen descent, is now more closely associated with its Andal heritage. During the coming of the Andals, an Edmure Tully and his sons stood beside Christopher IV Mudd, the last great River King. But after his fall, they bent the knee to the Andal warlord, Armistead Vance. In the years that followed, Sir Edmure's son, Axel Tully, was granted lands at the meeting of the Red Fork and the Tumblestone, where he raised the castle of Riverrun, or at least the first more simple version of the castle. Though counted among the great lords of the great houses in the current age, the Tullys were never kings. Instead, they held Riverrun for thousands of years, more as loyal vassals to whichever power ruled the Riverlands, often serving as defenders of the Western Trident against the kings of the Rock of House Lannister. Their history is marked by steadfast, if sometimes ill-fated, loyalties. Lord Elston Tully gave his life supporting Lord Roderick Blackwood in rebellion against King Humphrey Teague. In another generation, Lord Tommen Tully stood with Angiers Blackwood against King Harwin Hoare. Though the cause was lost in the struggle, his natural son Samwell Rivers was slain upon the Tumblestone. House Tully rose to true prominence during Aegon's Conquest, when Lord Edmure Tully led the Riverlords in revolt against King Harren Hoare, better known as Harren the Black, declaring for Aegon the Conqueror. After the fall and burning of Harrenhal, Edmund was rewarded with lordship over the Riverlands, becoming the first Lord Paramount of the Trident. The issue for House Tully, while they were given power by Aegon, they were never the mightiest among the bannermen. Houses such as Blackwood, Bracken, Frey and Vance could field much larger armies, whilst the Mootons surpassed them in wealth and the Mallisters in prestige. This left House Tully in a tricky position, given that without the backing of the crown, the extent of their power is really called into question. This very much is highlighted in times of war and especially civil war, where not all of House Tully's bannermen follow their liege lords, and often fight on opposing sides of conflicts. But there were some things House Tully did to lessen these issues greatly. Lord Edmund Tully strengthened the house through service and alliance. One of his daughters wed Quentyn Cahors, the new Lord of Harrenhal, and he himself served for 2 years as Hand of the King to Aegon the Conqueror. Under King Aenys Targaryen, the Tullys proved loyal during the rebellion of Harren the Red, and they later supported Maegor the Cruel against Prince Aegon the Young Crowned at the Battle Beneath the God's Eye, though in time they turned their back on him and supported King Jaehaerys I when Lord Rhaegar Baratheon proclaimed him king. Lord Prentice Tully served Jaehaerys as Master of Laws, whilst his wife, Lady Lucinda Tully, oversaw the household of Queen Alysanne. Both were instrumental in the shaping of the events of court during the regency period of King Jaehaerys. At the Great Council of 101 AC, Lord Grover Tully spoke in favour of King Viserys Targaryen over that of Laenor Velaryon. Later, during the Dance of the Dragons, the Tullys nominally led the fractious Riverlords. Though the aged Grover favoured the Greens, his grandson Elmo Tully and his great-grandson Kermit declared for the Blacks. However, it must be noted that the dance was a very fractious war, with most kingdoms and houses divided between the Blacks and the Greens. Seeing House Tully also split in opinion is not wholly surprising. Elmo fought at the Second Battle of Tumbleton, but died soon after Grover. Kermit then took command, leading the lads and slaying Boros Baratheon at the Battle of the King's Road. His brother Oscar Tully later founded the Sellsword Company, the Stormbreakers. In the war's aftermath, the Tullys, like the Blackwoods, were strengthened by Northerners whom wed widows at the so-called Widows' Fairs and remained in the Riverlands. In later years, they remained steadfastly loyal to House Targaryen during the Blackfyre Rebellion. Lord Medgar Tully is known to have taken part at the Ashford Meadow tourney in 209 AC, where he was defeated in the first tilt by Sir Humphrey Harding. Not long after, during the reign of King Aerys I Targaryen, Riverrun passed to a boy lord of 8, said to be surrounded only by women, with no brothers or uncles to guide him. Let the kings of winter have their coal crypts under the earth. The Tullys drew their strength from the river, and it was to the river they returned, once their lives had run their course. The Thoughts of Catelyn Stark. A Storm of Swords, Chapter 35. Catelyn 4. Given the exposed and often contested nature of the Riverlands, House Tully has relied upon alliances to safeguard its position. Lord Hoster Tully sought to strengthen such ties by arranging a marriage between his brother, Brynden Tully, a notable hero of the War of the Ninepenny Kings, and Bethany Redwine. Brynden refused outright, and the quarrel began between the brothers that endured for years, during which he earned the name Blackfish, even taking it as his own personal banner. In his youth, Hoster Tully was said to be tall, broad-shouldered and strong, with blue eyes and brown hair. As years passed, he grew more portly, his hair and beard turning grey. By 296 AC, he was taken ill, which over time took its toll. He had grown gaunt and seemed almost diminished in stature, his hair and beard thinning and wholly white now. A proud man throughout his life, Hoster was a devout follower of the faith of the Seven. In his younger days, he was seldom still, forever riding from one place to another. But in old age he found quiet satisfaction in watching the waters of the Redfork and the Tumblestone from his solar in Riverrun. His eldest daughter Catelyn Stark believed him a man too honourable ever to father a bastard. In battle, Hoster wore silver plate and mail, with a blue and red cloak and a surcoat bearing the trout of House Tully. His great helm was crowned with a crest shaped like a trout scaled in silver and bronze, and he carried a massive oak and iron shield. In his youth he was often seen astride a brown gelding with a hunting horn among his prized possessions. Hoster also notably fostered Peter Baelish, a minor lord from the Fingers. Peter fell in love with Hoster's eldest daughter Catelyn, but was rejected. In her stead he took the maidenhead of her sister Lysa. Hoster forbid any marriage between Peter and his daughters due to his low birth, and compelled Lysa to drink moon tea to prevent a child. An alliance with House Lannister was also considered, as Hoster accepted a proposal from Tywin Lannister to wed Lysa to Jaime Lannister. This came to nothing when Jaime unexpectedly joined the Kingsguard. Hoster refused Tywin's later suggestion of a younger son, Tyrion. Other matches were also explored, but in the end Hoster accepted the offer of Rickard Stark, betrothing Catelyn to his heir, Brandon. Peter challenged Brandon for her hand, and was defeated, after which he was sent away from Riverrun. Hoster would have 3 children, 1 son and 2 daughters, Edmure, Catelyn and Lysa. Catelyn Tully, later Stark, was the eldest, born in 264 AC, and is described as a striking woman, possessing the fair skin and thick auburn hair and blue eyes characteristic of House Tully. She had long, graceful fingers and fine-shaped, high cheekbones, and according to her uncle Brynden, she took after her mother, Minissa Went. It is said Catelyn strove always to live by her house words: family, duty, honour. Proud, honourable and truthful, she could at times look down upon the small folk, yet her nature was fundamentally gentle and peace-seeking. She placed duty above personal desires, guiding her actions by what was required rather than by what she wished. But when it came to those she loved, she was fiercely protective. Her uncle Brynden deemed her wise, while Tyrion Lannister recognised a keen cunning in her. A devout follower of the faith of the Seven, Catelyn dressed in fine gowns, often favouring woolen garments in red and blue. Her sister Lysa Tully, later Arryn, was born sometime around 266 to 286 AC. She had been a pretty and slender girl in her youth, high-breasted, dimpled, and delicate in appearance. By her early 30s, however, years of pregnancies, miscarriages, and stillbirth had left her heavier of body. Though 2 years younger than her sister, Catelyn, Lysa appears the elder by far, her face grown pale and puffy, often concealed beneath paints and powders. She shares the blue eyes of House Tully, though hers were pale and watery, set above a small, petulant mouth. Her thick auburn hair, still one of her finest features, fell to her waist. Though she made use of perfumes, she could not easily mask the faint, sour, milky scent that clung to her. In her youth, Lysa had been soft, shy, and timid, prone to awkward silences and sudden fits of nervous laughter. Her time at King's Landing altered her deeply, shaping her into a far more unstable and contradictory woman, by turns a proud and fearful, cruel and dreamy, impulsive yet hesitant, stubborn, vain, and even inconsistent. What she had never possessed, even as a girl, was true courage, and that absence endured into her later years. Edmure Tully was born sometime between 270 and 274 AC. Edmure also had auburn hair and deep blue eyes, and also wears a fiery red beard. He has a stocky build, standing a head taller than his sisters. He is described as quick to smile and fond of pretty girls, though he becomes sulky and sullen when angered. He is also soft-hearted and deeply protective of his small folk. According to Catelyn, he dislikes singers after one slept with a girl he fancied. According to the singer, Tom of Seven Streams, Edmure once drank too heavily and was thus unable to perform in bed, leading Tom to compose a mocking song about a floppy fish. He counts Lord Lyman Goodbrook, Patrick Mallister, Mark Piper, and the young Vances amongst his companions. For battle, Edmure wears a bright mail, favours a flowing cloak in blue and red, of mud and water tones. His great hound bears a silver trout crest, which is also painted on his shield. His wardrobe includes tunics embroidered with a silvery fish or striped in red and blue, as well as a quilted red wool doublet adorned with a leaping trout. The execution of Brynden Stark and his father by King Aerys II, the Mad King, upended Hoster's plans for his children, but he swiftly joined the rebellion led by Robert Baratheon. He sealed new alliances by wedding Catelyn to Eddard Stark, the new Lord of Winterfell, and Lysa to Jon Arryn, Lord of the Vale and the Eyrie. The Riverlands became a central battleground during Robert's rebellion, with Hoster fighting at the Battle of the Bells. Yet his authority over his bannermen was not absolute. Houses such as Darry, Mootin and Rhaegar remained loyal to House Targaryen, while the Goodbrooks had to be subdued by force. House Frey delayed joining the conflict until after the decisive Battle of the Trident. When the war was done, the Tully daughters departed for their new homes, with Brynden Tully accompanying Lysa to the Vale, where he took up the post of Knight of the Gate. Small chance the Blackfish will pay good coin for a girl he doesn't know. Those Tullys are a sour, suspicious lot. He's like to think we're selling him a false good. Tom of Seven Streams to Beric Dondarrion. A Storm of Swords, Chapter 43. Arya 8. By the time of A Game of Thrones in 298 AC, Hoster Tully is now an aged man, weakened by illness and confined to his bed. His duties and authorities have passed largely to his son and heir Edmure. Following the sudden death of her husband, Lord Jon Arryn, Lysa sends a secret message from the Eyrie to Winterfell, warning her sister Catelyn of the Lannisters. Catelyn later travels to King's Landing to speak with her husband, Lord Eddard Stark, now the Hand of the King to Robert Baratheon, regarding an attempt on their son Bran's life. There, Peter Baelish informs her that the Valyrian steel dagger used in the attack once belonged to Tyrion Lannister. On her return journey, Catelyn captures Tyrion at the Crossroads Inn and takes him to the Eyrie for trial. Lysa Arryn's champion, Savardis Eggen, is defeated in trial by combat by Bronn, and Tyrion is then ultimately set free. In response to Tyrion's capture, Lord Tywin Lannister calls his banners. Edmure sends Lord Vance and Piper to defend the pass beneath the Golden Tooth, while Tywin dispatches Gregor Clegane to raid the Riverlands and draw out Stark forces. Rather than striking back directly, Hoster sends envoys to King's Landing seeking justice. Meanwhile, Eddard sends Lord Beric Dondarrion to hunt the Mountain. Edmure attempts to defend the Riverlands by dispersing his forces to guard villages and holdfasts along the border, but this leaves his strength greatly divided. After King Robert Baratheon's death, Tywin's son, Jaime, defeats Lord Vance and Piper and later captures Edmure Tully himself, placing Riverrun under siege. Beric Dondarrion is defeated at the Mummer's Ford, and the Lannisters advance across the Riverlands. The new king, Joffrey Baratheon, demands the submission of House Tully. Lysa refuses to commit the Vale forces, while Brynden Tully, disgusted with her decision, leaves to join Catelyn's son, Robb Stark, and his Northmen. Brynden helps lure Jaime Lannister into the Whispering Wood, where he is captured. Robb Stark then breaks the siege of Riverrun with a surprise attack, supported by Brynden, while Lord Tytos Blackwood leads a sortie that helps rescue Edmure. Following the great victory at the Battle of the Camps, the Riverlords and Northmen gather in the Great Hall of Riverrun to proclaim Robb Stark king in the north. Brynden Tully reconciles with his dying brother Hoster before riding off with Robb to war. Now also proclaimed the King of the Trident. before his campaign in the Westerlands. Catelyn journeys south to negotiate with Renly Baratheon at Bitterbridge, but Renly demands that Robb pay him homage, but he is slain at Storm's End before an agreement can be reached. Within Riverrun, Tully guards thwart a plot to free Jaime Lannister from the dungeons. Catelyn returns to Riverrun, where Edmure remained to guard the rear of Robb Stark's army. He shelters small folk from Lannister raids, though this strains Riverrun's supplies. In the Battle of the Fords, Edmure leads the Riverlords in preventing Tywin Lannister from crossing the Red Fork. Upon learning, falsely, that her son Bran and Rickon had been killed at Winterfell, Catelyn then releases Jaime from captivity at Riverrun. After the Battle of the Blackwater, Peter Baelish is rewarded for his alliance-building efforts with the title Lord Paramount of the Trident by King Joffrey Baratheon, replacing the rebellious Lord Hoster as Liege Lord of the Riverlands. Catelyn Stark, having entrusted Brienne of Tarth with delivering Jaime Lannister to King's Landing in the hopes of securing her daughter's release, is placed under house arrest within Riverrun. After the storming of the Crag, Robb Stark weds Jane Westerling, breaking his alliance with House Frey. Upon returning to Riverrun, he and Brynden Tully inform Edmure that his victory at the Battle of the Fords had unintentionally ruined Robb's plans to trap Tywin Lannister in the west. In his final days, Hoster Tully falls into delirium, regretting his past decisions regarding Lysa Arryn and Peter Baelish. Edmure and Catelyn remain at his side as he dies, though Lysa does not attend, despite their pleas. With Hoster's death, Edmure formally becomes Lord of Riverrun. To make amends for disrupting Robb's strategy, Edmure agrees to wed a Frey in Robb's stead. Brynden is named Warden of the Southern Marches and remains at Riverrun, while the others march north. As the twins, the Tullys and Starks are portrayed in what becomes known as the Red Wedding. Catelyn Stark, Robb, and many others are killed, while under the protection of guest rites. In a cruel mockery of Tully custom, Catelyn's body is thrown naked into the Green Fork. Lord Edmure is taken captive, and House Tully is stripped of its lands and titles. Riverrun is granted to House Frey, while the lordship of the Riverlands passes to Peter Baelish, now Lord of Harrenhal. Brynden Tully is thus left besieged at Riverrun, one of the last strongholds in the Riverlands still loyal to the Starks. After King Joffrey's death, Sansa Stark escapes King's Landing with Peter Baelish's aid. Lysa Arryn later travels to the Fingers and marries Peter, only to be thrown to her death through the moon door at the Eyrie after a confrontation with Sansa. Catelyn's body is eventually recovered from the Green Fork by a wolf. Restored to life by Beric Dondarrion, she now leads the Brotherhood Without Banners, going by the name Lady Stoneheart, ordering the execution of Peter Frey and his great-uncle Merryt Frey at Oldstones. During the siege of Riverrun, Brynden Tully endures daily threats from Ryman Frey that Edmure Tully will be hanged should he not surrender the castle. When Jaime Lannister arrives at the siege, he fails to persuade Brynden to surrender. Instead, Jaime threatens Edmure, warning that he will send the Riverlords against Riverrun and even use a trebuchet to hurl the unborn child of Rosalind Frey, his wife, into the castle once it's born. Facing this threat, Edmure convinces Brynden to yield Riverrun, but the Blackfish slips away and escapes into parts unknown. Edmure is then taken into captivity at Casterly Rock, with his wife Rosalind joining him after she gives birth. Meanwhile, Thoros of Myr reveals that the corpse of Catelyn Stark, now known as Lady Stoneheart, was revived through the last kiss by Beric Dondarrion. She has since embarked on a path of vengeance, killing those tied to the Red Wedding. Her outlaws capture Brienne of Tarth and threaten her with hanging. Titus Blackwood remains the last of the Riverlords still flying the banner of House Stark and House Tully. Jaime Lannister negotiates the end of the siege of Raventree Hall, while Titus claims he has no knowledge of whereabouts of Brynden Tully.